So in our today's session, we are going to extensively learn about business requirement document. What is business requirement document? What are the elements that are part of business requirement document? And what are the other variation of business requirement document? Where business requirement document comes from? Some of the best practices, and then we will go through a sample business requirement document and a template for business requirement document. So when I say business requirement document, what comes in everyone's mind is it's a requirement document, but from a perspective of a business. Now, when I say business, so business is ultimately the team which is part of your outsourcing company, who is essentially outsourcing your particular contract to a particular vendor company. So in our regular case, outsourcing company can be anyone, can be Microsoft, can be Apple System, and vendor company can be anyone like Accenture, Deloitte, or any XYZ company. Now, when we do all the pre-project activities like creating a proposal, writing a business case, and freezing the statement of work which is associated with the overall contract of the project or overall engagement of the project, we tend to create this document at the very first time, or in sequence wise. This is the very first document that we create as a business analyst. Now what it captures is it captures all your business requirements. Now when I say business requirements, there are other requirements document as well, like your functional specification document or a software specification document or any XYZ document. Then why do we need to create a business requirement document? So this document is intended and is created from a perspective that business users would refer this particular document. Business users as in the outsourcing company. And whatever terms we use, whatever process flows that we create or we put in this particular document is essentially meant for business users usage. Like what all things would be part of this particular project, like the components or the functionalities, the non-functional requirement, whatever the functionalities are there pertaining to that particular project at a very high level is documented in this business requirement document. Now, who are essentially the business analyst who creates the business requirement document? So business requirement documents are essentially created by business analysts who are at a senior level. For example, your consultant, your senior consultant, these are the people who would be creating business requirement document. Now, what about the entry level business analyst or mid level business analyst who are working in that particular project? So they would essentially be accountable for creating the detailed version of the requirements, like your functional specification document, which is essentially a subset of business requirement document. But they would contribute towards business requirement document, because the time when your senior BA or the BA lead or the senior consultant is creating this business requirement document, you cannot sit idle. You have to contribute somewhere or the other. So your work goes as a contribution to this business requirement document. Although you are not accountable for this document, but you are contributing to this particular document by creating some process flows or lining up the requirements, the high level requirement, listing them down in your business requirement document, and so on. So business requirement document is also called as high level document or HLD. In other words, if someone asks you what is HLD, so HLD is nothing but your business requirement document that you create. Now let us understand what and why of BRD. Now I gave you a reason why most of the projects started failing. So majority of the reason that we saw is contributing towards bad communication between relevant parties. So this is a statistics that were taken of late, that which contribute towards the need for business requirement document. So the majority of the contributing factor was the bad communication between relevant parties. Now, who are relevant parties? So, relevant parties are nothing but your business stakeholders. So, business stakeholders always wanted to keep track of the project work. They just don't want to be tracking the project from a business side. They want to understand what the project is, what status the project is undergoing at this point of time. And at the same time, they are also not that much tech savvy people who could actually understand the complex documents that we saw, the functional specification, or the complex artifacts like your UML diagrams. If we consider whatever diagrams that we covered in our yesterday's session, like state chart diagram or collaboration diagram, or uh, the other diagrams that we covered in our yesterday's session, they were more detailed in nature. So those diagrams are something the business user cannot understand. The class diagram, these are very detailed in nature, which represents how the system is being constructed from a programming perspective. So what the ideal solution that we came up with is to create a business requirement document wherein we would highlight all the requirements which is easily comprehensible by the business stakeholder. So that is the gap which the business requirement document bridges essentially. It improves the communication with the relevant parties by including only the set of information which are relevant to your business stakeholder. It doesn't include any such crap information which are irrelevant to the business stakeholder, only relevant information. So in our subsequent session, we would learn about something called as the BA communication package, wherein we would understand what documents needs to send to what group of people. We cannot share everything with everyone. So the business documents we cannot share with the technical people, and technical documents we cannot share with the business people. We have to maintain a line of maturity somewhere, because if even though we send these documents to everyone, those documents are not comprehensible enough to understand or get a conclusion around what's the need is or what's the requirement is. So that's the reason why we create business requirement document. So there are other reasons as well which contributes to project failure, but majority of the reason contributes towards the bad communication between relevant parties. And with business requirement document, we tend to improve that communication with the relevant parties. Now, what and why we need a business requirement document? So, in a IT project level, business requirement document expresses the requirements of business, customers, and stakeholders of a new project. Like I said, whatever business specific requirements are there, we express them in a business requirement document. So it summarizes the business reasons, like what problems do the business customers want to solve. We would have a problem description or problem statement mentioned in the business requirement document, much like that we have in our business case. And we tend to explore the possible options how to solve that particular business problem through business requirement document, or what job the business customer wants to accomplish. So what is their problem or what they are looking to accomplish with this particular project. So these are the possible two questions whose answer is given by this particular business requirement document. So essentially it's a justification document which gives all the possible reasons why the particular project is in place and why we should execute that particular project. Next, we will see what are the elements of the business requirement document. What are the sections or what are the important contents that are part of your business requirement document. So first thing that would be there is your problem definition. So what is your business need? Why are you initiating this particular project? Or what do you think about this particular project and what were your problem um, because of which you are initiating this particular project? So that is our business need that would go under problem definition in a typical business requirement document. So some of the problem could be to display product information for the website, or to sell products from start to finish, or to order products or materials from suppliers, or customer service processes. So these four line items that you see over here are four different projects in itself. These are just one liner description of the business need. But when we explore more and more about it, we tend to create a business requirement document around each line item, and that line item is itself a particular project. So these are four different projects. So your business customer, when your request for proposal comes in, they would give you description like this, like to display this thing, to display this thing, and so on. So your initial requirement would be 4 to 5 lines. Now from that 4 to 5 lines, how you go through a journey wherein you create a business requirement document of around 400 to 500 pages is something worth interesting to explore in a typical given scenario. So there are lots of effort involved in it. There are lots of research work that you need to do, lots of information gathering that you need to do, that we covered in one of the few sessions that we had earlier to this. So there's an information gathering process wherein you sit with different stakeholders, ask them different questions, document them, pick the right questions out of that, get answer to those right questions that you have. Then you do some researching, then you do some document analysis. So there are different techniques that you apply for elaborating these particular set of requirements to a further level, so that you bring in those requirements in a concrete shape that is implementable by the development team, and towards the end deliverable to the customer as a business value. The next element is stakeholder and their needs. So first would be your business justification, the problem statement, wherein you would define your business need. And second element would be your stakeholders and what is their need. So in theory, anyone who is impacted by a decision or able to prevent decisive action from occurring is called as stakeholders. Okay. So in practice, those with vested interest in either the issue and or their relationship with those making the decision are also part of your project. Now this is something, they are by default part of the project, but this is something they have to be included in your particular project. Now can anyone explain me what is vested interest by referring to this picture?
Is it like bribing or something?
Bribing is a very rude word, but indirectly, yes, you can say, because in IT projects, not everything happens officially or formally. There are something that you need to do unofficially as well, and that is what this vested interest looks like. You give me this information, I would give you a what I would say compensation for it, or I would give you the right compensation for it. Now that compensation can be a monetary compensation, or can be an additional project, or can be an additional amount of work as well. So it's like building a informal relationship with your customers. Now those people are not the business analysts, those people are not the managers as well, those people are the senior management who are essentially part of your particular project. So those people, they don't essentially contribute towards building the project, but they have very high influence on the project. High influence as in they can bring more work to you. So ultimately, when more work comes to your company or your organization is benefited by that particular project or work, because fresh billing would be created for those additional amount of work, and ultimately the profitability of your organization increases. But they won't do this work for free. They would be needing something, and when the need comes, so this need can be sufficed either through monetary compensation or through something else as well. So these are the stakeholders, the vested interested stakeholder, who essentially do nothing to the project, but they have a very high influence. So whenever you are creating a business requirement document, you need to identify these stakeholders as well. Typically, they fall into the senior management category. They are not business analysts, they are not project managers. They are someone from the senior management or the C cadre people. Now, how do we identify stakeholder and their needs? So these are the four things that you need to consider when you need to identify your stakeholders and their needs. So first is your responsible. Who is responsible for that particular piece of work? Then comes your accountable. Who is accountable for that particular piece of work? Now, in order to accomplish that work, whom you need to consult? And when you are doing this particular work, who needs to be informed? So these are the four things that you need to consider when you are putting your stakeholder and grouping them as and according to the piece of work they are doing. So this particular term is called as RACI matrix. When you create a official document in and around this, this would called as RACI matrix. So your business requirement document would be including this RACI matrix as well. So the name of the stakeholder, what position he is in, responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed, and for what particular task. You need to clearly mention in that particular RACI matrix. Now, these are some of the guidelines for creating a RACI matrix. You have to identify all the tasks involved in delivering the project. Then you have to identify all the project roles like project manager, business analyst, quality assurance, or your development team. And you have to group them as responsible, accountable, consultant, or informed. Then you have to complete the cells of the chart identifying who has the responsibility, accountability, and who would be consulted and informed for each task. Now you have to ensure each task has a role responsible and a role accountable for it. So no task should have more than one role accountable. So always accountable would be one person. Accountability cannot be shared. Okay. However, consultation can happen with multiple people, and when it comes to informing someone, that can also happen with multiple people. After that, you have to share and discuss and agree on the RACI matrix. Whenever you have identify a list of people, a list of tasks, and you have grouped them according to their responsibility, accountability, consultation, and information, you need to consult them. Do you agree upon it or not? Are you ready to take this responsibility or accountability or consultation or information? And then you can put it in your business requirement document. So this is how the RACI matrix look like. So this is your step 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the project initiation task, task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, and these are the roles like project executive, project manager, business analyst, technical architect, and application developers. And basis on the task they are doing, so for that particular task, who is consulted, who is accountable or responsible, who is consulted, who is informed, and who else is informed. So task 1, for task 1, project executive is consulted. For task 1, project manager is accountable or responsible. For task 1, business analyst is consulted. For task 1, your technical architect is informed. And for task 1, application developer is informed. Similarly, for task 2, project executive is accountable. Project manager is informed. Business analyst is responsible. Technical architect is consulted. And application developers are informed. So this way, you have to first outline the task. This task could be like developing a particular module or testing a particular module or analyzing a particular project. So this way the task could be. For example, if we take analysis. Now analysis is an accountability of business analyst. Technical architect would be a role of consultation. Application developer would be in the role of consultation. Project manager would be informed and project executive would be informed. If we take the task as development, so for development, accountability would be with the application developer. Business analyst would be always consulted. Technical architect would always be consulted. So project manager would be in the role of responsible because he is responsible for developing and sorry for delivering the developed work to the customer, and project executive would be in the role of informed. So this way, depending on the task, whether it's a function, a feature that you are delivering, or a particular module that you are testing, or a particular project that you are performing business analysis. So depending on the task, the accountabilities, responsibilities, and consultation information um, responsibilities changes. Now there are certain variation in RACI matrix as per PMI. There is also something called as RSI, responsible sponsor informed. There is also something called as RACI, ratio, RACI hyphen PS. So these are some of the variation in RACI matrix. But typically in regular project scenario, we only use RACI matrix to its simplest form. Now, the third thing that would come into your business requirement document is the scope. Now, we have discussed a lot about scope. So, scope is something basis on which your project is defined. Now, whatever you are developing or whatever you have agreed upon to give or deliver to the business users are essentially part of your in-scope item. And whatever something that are not that is supposed to be handled by you as a vendor company are part of your out of scope item. So you have to list down in business requirement document what is the scope of the project, what is your scope as a vendor company, and what is out of scope as a vendor company for you people. Now, why do we define in scope and out of scope right here? Because at a later point of time, when the project development starts, the business user tend to creep the scope, excuse me, wherein they tend to include many out of scope item to in scope item. So to avoid that unnecessary inclusion of out of scope item into in scope item, we tend to define the scope, and as a business analyst we need to ensure that the scope is intact and in place. Now if there is any issues pertaining to the scope, if you see the business users are intending to creep the scope, so your project manager is the first person whom you need to keep informed regarding any scope changes. So that is something you have to do. And as a business analyst, it's your responsibility to keep the scope intact for a particular project. Any given point of time you feel that customer is trying to creep the scope, reach out to your project manager. So this is an example of scope creep. So this is what your customer is asking, can you make the web look more like web 2.0? So the business analyst says, yes, I can add a shiny button. So this is something he gives. Now, important reason why scope creep happens is because of these category of requirement. The requirements are ambiguous in nature. So as a business analyst, defining a scope is one thing, but you have to write clear and concise requirement, because one requirement can create multiple other requirements. So you have to be very careful when you are writing the requirement. It should essentially ensure to the scope. It shouldn't be something that is out of scope. For example, in our case, it should look more like web 2.0. Now web 2.0 is a different framework itself, okay, and you are agreeing to develop a website to your for your customer, and they are expecting that website should meet the web 2.0 framework standards. Now as a business analyst, you have defined that you would be delivering, or you have defined the scope as you would be delivering a particular website to the customer. You haven't ever agreed that that website would meet the web 2.0 framework standard. Now that is where the gap lies. You have to clearly mention in out of scope item that defining the standards of web 2.0 framework is out of scope. If you miss writing that particular line in business requirement document, the customer would ask you to deliver free work for them. They would first get their website built with them, built for them, and after that they would say you haven't mentioned in out of scope item, so you are liable to deliver it to us, and you cannot do anything at a later stage. So it's very important that you keep your research skills very active. So if there are any ambiguous term which you feel would need additional consultations from technical architect or solution architect, do not hesitate to reach out to them. Ask them what is the ideology behind this, and what is the amount of time, effort, energy needed in order to deliver this work item, and accordingly take a call. Do not include any ambiguous thing in your business requirement document. Keep the communication clear and crisp. Now, next item is business process review. That would be part of your business requirement document. Now, when I say business process review, so essentially your BRD would be having two things: as is model and to be model. So as is model is like how the system is working currently, means what are the current challenges in that particular system. You have to highlight those challenges that are there in your current system. And to be is like what is your proposition around those challenges to the customer. So these are the two important things that needs to be part of your business requirement document under business process overview. So these are nothing but your process flow diagrams that you create, but this process flow should highlight the pain areas in as is model, and what are the mitigation steps you take to mitigate those pain areas in 2B model. So this has to be summarized in two business process flow diagram: the current state and the proposed state. Then there are sections like business objective. So what is your parent requirement? The easiest way to think of it, ask yourself, so whatever the parent requirement would be, like what are the goals we have for this website or project, you have to outline those business objectives. Then you have to highlight what are the available resources in consultation with your project manager that would help fulfill the project website requirement. Are there any existing software, hardware, or content or templates available? You need to highlight in the available resources section. Then if there are certain constraints, some risk and some issues. Risk is a probability that would happen, and issues are something that is already known to you. So those things you can highlight under constraints. So what are the limiting factors for the website or project? So limiting factor could be a dependency on any other third party COTS package. COTS as in commercial off the shelf package, wherein you buy a third party vendor software and directly integrate it with your system and start using it. If there are any such constraints, then you have to highlight it over there. Then almost there are three constraints: time, budget, and skills. If there are, these are something that is part of your business requirement document, then you have to include them as well. And essentially these three are some of the basic constraints that needs to be highlighted in a business requirement document. After that, there are something called as list of assumption. So this is the other section that you need to populate in your business requirement document. So what you have assumed when you are writing business requirement document. So since this document is created at a very initial stage of a particular project, so there are chances that there would be multiple things that needs to be assumed at that point of time, wherein you are not clear about that particular piece of work or piece of functionalities that would undergo development. So those all features or functionalities, you have to put it under list of assumption. So assumption has to be certainly validated, because assumptions are something, a possible candidate that would emerge as risk at a later point of time. So this assumption would essentially be validated by your business stakeholders as well, while they give their official sign off for that particular business requirement document. So any assumptions identified is a risk identified. So whatever assumptions that you are making is essentially a risk for that particular project. For example, if you see, the video on demand website will be free of charge to users and will not rely on registration for the services. So it is believed by brand marketing to be the case. Now the new website would allow 10-second ads to be inserted into video clips on the fly. So research still ongoing regarding the maximum length of the ad which will be inserted. So this is not yet confirmed, but you are assuming this thing basis on the need of the project. So the development resource will be available from project initiation to the support the project. So agreed subject to project being initiated by September 2009. So there is a date. If this if on this particular date the project is initiated, then only this condition would be satisfied. So assumptions are nothing but certain condition based on certain events. If this event happened, then only this condition would be fulfilled. So this way you have to assume certain things, and who are the stakeholder who needs to validate this assumption. So they may at a later point of time during their business requirement document approval process, they may say that this assumption is invalid as well. So as a business analyst, whatever you feel should go as an assumption, you have to highlight them in list of assumptions. Then in the next session, you have to specify your requirements at a very high level. Very high level as in you have to just write down the requirement in one liner. You don't have to detail out. So detailing would happen in your functional specification document or in your user stories. You need not to write detailed requirement over there. So when you write specific requirement, you have to categorize them as functional requirement or non-functional requirement. So functional requirement, we already know the actual need of the project from a business standpoint are something that needs to be included in functional requirement, and non-functional requirement are the technical requirements that would be part of your particular project. So those requirements you need to highlight in business requirement document at a very high level, not a detailed one. Then you have to write the conclusion of your thoughts around the business needs or the business objective in the business requirement document. If there are any glossaries that you are referring to, or if you are using any jargon in your business requirement document throughout, for example cloud computing infrastructure, you would be using glossary as CCI and mention it somewhere in the form of dictionary that CCI refers to cloud computing infrastructure. So similarly, you can include as many glossaries as you want in the particular glossary section. Bibliography is like any source of information you have referred somewhere, like Wikipedia or business standard website or Forbes website during your research phase for a particular topic or a particular functionality. You can put that reference in bibliography section. Now, these were some of the contents of business requirement document at a very high level. Now, this content can be, um, you know, uh, more or can be less depending on your organization's business requirement document template. So every organization has their own way of dealing with capturing the business requirements. So they would be having their own predefined set of templates. So like I already said, you always have access to your competency group. Whenever you are asked to work on a particular business requirement document, reach out to your competency group to give you a particular template to start with. So depending on that particular template, you start populating the section. But pretty much these are the section that has to be there in that particular template. And depending on the nature of the project, if the project is more from a marketing standpoint, or the project is more from a finance standpoint, or the project is more from an insurance standpoint, they would be having a special section wherein they would be detailing out their domain specific elements as in something that is very much specific to that particular domain wherein that particular belongs to. If it's an insurance domain project, when you are writing the 2B model and as-is model, you have to include all the possible transactions like your new business, your renewal, your rewrite, all those transaction details as it is happening in the current system, and in 2B model how you are proposing to be happening in the current system, and you have to include some screenshots as well, the screen prints, how it is there and what the changes and exact where the changes would happen. So these are something domain intensive business requirement document, or projects which are very much in that particular area. Otherwise, for all other projects, this is the standard set of sections that are there in a typical business requirement document. Now, other flavors of BRD we already know. Request for proposal is also a kind of BRD at a very high level, wherein you have some sort of information. Then you have system requirement document, which is very detailed in nature, and functional specification document, again, which is very detailed in nature and are essentially subsets of BRD. Now, can anyone tell me, is system requirement document and functional spec document same thing or different thing? If different, why? Okay, so going by its name, essentially system requirement documents are more technical intensive. They are more from a technical perspective, like how the coding and all those things would be fit into the software architecture. Whereas functional specification document is more detailing from a business standpoint, wherein you detail out a particular functionality with the help of use cases and scenarios. So in some organization, they would be having these two different documents. In some organization, they would include system requirements into functional spec and say functional specification document and have only one document. And in some organization, they would have system requirement document and include functional specification into it and have only one document, that is system requirement document. It depends on your organization or organization to organization how they maintain their requirement as two different document or one document. It completely depends on the organization and their function. Then comes your BRD best practices. What are the best practices that you need to follow when you are writing the business analyst? So you need to be very careful when you are preparing your business requirement document. Excuse me. You can write or prepare good business requirement document by following some simple guidelines. First of all, you need to gather detailed information from your stakeholder or sponsor who provides you funding or who will be affected or impacted by the project outcome. So you need to have a thorough understanding by sitting with the business team around their needs and objectives behind initiating that particular project. Only after that you can come to a conclusion and go about writing the business requirement document. So you have to, in this particular process, you may have to contact team members who are having familiarity with the business problem, because as a BA we need to solve the problem by accepting the project. So if there are any projects that are parallelly being executed which is similar in nature, or if there are any project that has already been executed of similar nature in your particular organization, reach out to the team members of that particular project and ask for additional information that could help you create questions for the business when you are into your business requirement gathering session. So that would also help you when you are writing your business requirement document. Then you have to avoid, like I said, you have to avoid unnecessary confusion and misunderstanding during the initial phases of the project itself. Now, how you do that? By writing clear and concise requirement, avoiding ambiguity in and around a particular requirement. Do not write any ambiguous term. Keep the scope defined, very well defined. Do not include anything that would at a later point of time give rise to a situation wherein the scope is being creeped by a particular business customer or a business user. So these are some of the best practices that you need to follow when you are writing a business requirement document. Of course, language is also a factor wherein you have to maintain a well uh, formatted statements when you are writing a business requirement document. it has to be in very simple English. It shouldn't be that much complex, because when you are working in a geographically distributed environment, there are people from different countries and origin. So everyone is not that much well versed, in English language. So they perceive different terms differently. So if you ask me my real time experience, so I have been into this US based company project. I have been working there as a business analyst very recently. So we had a business team. Now, in that particular business team, there was that lady who actually headed from Kenya to US. Now, she had different language issues. So she, at many point of time, she was unable to comprehend some of the aspects of the business requirement document. So you have to keep the language very simple, so that irrespective of the country of origin, people from different geographies are able to understand your language that you have used to document your business requirement document. So don't use any high or any heavyweight language while writing your business requirement document. Now, these are some of the steps that you need to take when you are writing your business requirement document. You have to create your own format or download a template. Like I said, every organization would be having a template for writing a BRD. Always use that particular template, because that gives a brand identity in front of the customers that this organization has created this particular BRD for us. So that template would be having all the necessary branding elements like the header, footer, the logo of your organization, and so on. So always make it a habit that reach out to your competency group for a template when you are asked for writing a BRD. Now, you need to create a comprehensive picture of business requirement document by providing supplementary information in spreadsheet, charts, or presentation. So do not keep your business requirement document dry. Always supplement it with some spreadsheet, some chart or presentation, some real-time information which helps your business user to take instant decision around that business requirement. So always make that as a practice. So this is step one. Reach out to your domain competency group, ask for a template, and make your business requirement document as realistic as possible with the help of spreadsheet, charts, and presentation in respective section wherever it is needed, not in every section. Step 2 is you must define the scope. Like I said, scope is the culprit over here. If you use any vague term in writing the scope, it would ultimately lead towards not finishing the project in a timely manner, or ultimately it would add up to additional effort. So always keep your scope intact. That is your step 2 when you are writing a BRD. Step 3 is always communicate with your stakeholder to have a clear view of the requirement. So every stakeholder, we all are human beings at the end. So today if we say something, and tomorrow if I change my mind in and around that particular requirement, me being a business stakeholder, there is nothing wrong in that. I can change the business requirement since I am funding that particular project. Ultimately, my goal or my expectation out of that project is it should serve me, or it should give me the business value that I have perceived by investing in that particular project. But being a business analyst on the other side, you cannot interrogate your business stakeholder that, hey, look, yesterday you gave this requirement and today you have changed this requirement. You cannot be a lawyer over there by interrogating him. So keep the communication as friendly and as open as possible. And if the things are happening very frequently, then there is always a risk that needs to be raised to the senior management or the project managers. But in all other cases, try to build a rapport with the business stakeholders, so that you are um, uh, getting I mean kind of building a relationship with them for in a longer run, because that is something that is expected out of a business analyst. So he is essentially a business representative who is representative of the business but works for the vendor company. So it is like that. You are ultimately supporting your business sponsors, but you are working for the business, I mean, project vendor company. So you have to maintain that relationship with your business stakeholder. So do not interrogate them. Instead, try to find them why they changed their mind. And if it is justifiable, do include that particular item in your particular scope of the requirement if it is feasible with you by consulting with the right people like your project manager or any respective accountable person. Now, the fourth step is to review the past project. Like I said, you have to reach out to your organization's competency group and check there if there are any past project or the PMO office or any business analysis COE center of excellence wherein you could get some information pertaining to if there are any past project that has been executed which is similar in nature. If you find that information, include the relevant information that could be reused in your particular business requirement document. So that is step number 4. Step number 5 is create the first draft of your business requirement document and distribute it for review and input, but internally first. And then after all the respective review is done, you can send it out to the business users for approval. And during this review process, you have to also receive an approval from the legality of the requirement. Legality of the requirement as in if it's particular requirement is what I would say feasible in nature. Feasible in nature as in is it implementable? So we covered some of the requirement properties like unambiguous, feasible, testable. So you need to ensure the requirements are in those shape or not at the very high level. Detailing we would do it at a later point of time, but at a very high level whether it's feasible or not. So that is something that you need to do. After that, step 6 is make sure your technical team follows the document throughout the project so that the project moves in a smoother way. Now, technical team are very smart people. They never ever refer to the BRD. They would always come to you like you are always there at their service every point of time. So you need to ask your technical team to first review the business requirement document, essentially the approved and signed off business requirement document. And if they still have any question, then they should come and consult with you. So that is step number 6, that you need to set a process with the technical team to follow the document throughout the project. So those are essential steps that you need to take when you are writing a particular BRD. Now we will see a sample BRD. Okay, before moving on to inspecting a sample BRD, any questions, anyone? Okay, so this is a template. This is how your BRD template looks like. It is already uploaded in that particular portal. These two documents that we would go through um, just now is already uploaded. You can go through over there. You'll just see it, what are the contents. So there would always be a header section and there would be a footer section depending on your organization. So your organization logo would come over here, the business requirement document, the project name, the month the project started, the version of the BRD number, and the company information like company address or something. If it is there, it would come over here. After that, there would be document revision. Document revision as in when the first draft of the document was created. After that, on what date, what are the other drafts of that particular document is created. So those kind of information would come over here, the document revision control. After that, basis on your RACI matrix, you have to identify which role is accountable for approving what. So project sponsor, his name, his title, his signature and date. So this is your approval section. This is not your stakeholder matrix section although. So in approval section, you need to highlight which are the user roles that needs to give approval for that particular piece of items that they are accountable for. After that, in introduction, you have to write the project summary, the objective of the project, why the project is being initiated, what is the reason behind it, the background of the project, and if there are any business drivers that would be impacted by this particular project, you have to write them. After that, the scope of the project, the in-scope functionality, the out-of-scope functionality. Then you have to write your assumption, constraint, risk, issues from a system perspective. After that, you have to create a business process overview wherein you would be having the as-is process, a process flow diagram describing the as-is process and the pain area. Then you would be having a to-be process along with a to-be process or the proposed process diagram along with the description of what needs to be there in that to-be process with the pain areas clearly identified and highlighted. So essentially, we follow only two diagrams, one for as-is model and one for to-be model. But if you feel that two process flows are not sufficient, you can include multiple process flow as well in as-is model and to-be model. After that, you start writing your business requirement document. So depending on the value, um, you have to first create a legend kind of thing wherein you define the priority, the rating, whether it is critical, high, medium, low, or future, its description. Critical refers to what and value 1 refers to what. After that, you go on populating the functional requirement, and you have to give a specific requirement ID. See, this is very important. Whenever you are giving a requirement ID, this ID would serve as base throughout the project. Throughout the delivery cycle, this ID would remain constant. You cannot change this ID. So be very careful when you are giving this ID to a particular requirement. And after that, you have to mark the priority, the description of the requirement, the rationale behind that particular requirement. If there are any use cases, you can include or give a reference to that use cases and who are the stakeholder impacted. So you can write your functional requirement in this particular term, and you can populate all the relevant functional requirements. After that, you should come towards the non-functional requirement. So non-functional requirement, you can use grouping like security requirements, reporting, usability, audit requirement, or you can write like in case of functional requirement, non-functional requirement, and write down those particular requirements. So in this case, this non-functional requirements are essentially part of your functional requirement. So there are certain interlinked requirements which are non-functional in nature, but they are essentially part of your functional requirement. So you can write those requirements as well. So security, essentially it comes under non-functional requirement, but if it is a project which is more security intensive, then security requirements are treated as functional requirements. After that, we have a dedicated section for non-functional requirement wherein you have the same requirement ID and write your non-functional requirement if there are any. So always keep in mind these IDs needs to be unique. You cannot repeat this ID throughout your particular business requirement document, or for that matter throughout that particular project. So if there are any issues that would happen at a later point of time in a particular project, the business would always come to you with this requirement ID. They won't come to you with this particular one line or two liner requirement. They would always refer to this requirement ID. So ensure whatever requirement ID you are giving, you give it in a very calculative manner. For example, functional requirement general. So you are using FR-G 001002. So functional requirement security, you are using FR-S 001. Functional requirement reporting, so you are using FR-R 001. Functional requirement usability, FR-U 001. Functional requirement audit, FR-A 001. Similarly, for non-functional requirement, NFR-001. So you can decide to categorize them right here, or you can write it in this manner as well. But ensure the ID is unique in nature. The customer would always refer to the ID, not the entire requirement in any of the subsequent communications. After that, you have the appendices wherein you write all the glossary related documents, list of acronyms, and so on. So this is a template of a BRD, how you would use a particular BRD template and write the BRD at a very high level. So there is also RACI matrix that needs to be included in this particular template. I don't know, for some reason this template doesn't have that section, but you have to include a RACI matrix as well in this particular template. Now I'll show you an actual BRD. So this is an actual BRD. Of course, some of the section has been excluded in this particular project, and some of the items has been renamed considering the confidentiality. You can refer this particular sample BRD. This is a BRD of an actual project that was executed for a specific bank project. So this is how it looks like. So this is how the as-is model look like. And this is how you can show your pain areas. Just go through this particular sample BRD, and if it helps you understand what and how the BRD would look like. You can create process flows in this particular format as well using Visio stencils. So these all icons that you see, they would come in Visio stencils. So in our tomorrow's session, we are going to cover how to create this particular process flows in BPMN 2.